This is the Primetime Debate, and I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Now, for the first edition of Primetime Debate, we decided to look at an issue which has both political and economic significance. Since June this year, a number of states announced farm loan waivers in the wake of farmer agitations. Some crop prices had crashed at that time, and state elections pushed farm loan waiver announcements as well. So far, the state of Uttar Pradesh has begun its rollouts, and reports are emerging of some farmers getting payouts of just a few paise. By the state government's own admission, nearly 5,000 farmers have been paid less than 100 rupees. In Maharashtra, the government says it found 10 lakh fake accounts of people who claimed to be farmers. So let's review the farm loan waiver process. To talk about it, I have none other than M.S. Swaminathan, popularly known as the father of the Green Revolution. He's our first guest on the Primetime Debate. Remember, he also chaired the Swaminathan Committee report that made far-reaching recommendations on how to fix the agricultural sector. Welcome, sir. A very good evening. Welcome to Primetime Debate. Now, when we spoke a few months ago, you said farm loan waivers are a temporary necessity, seeing the farmer crisis at that time. Now we have reports of farmers receiving just a few paise as farm loan waivers in UP, for example. 10 lakh fake farmer accounts have been found in Maharashtra. Do you think the rollout of these farm loan waivers are on the right track?
Well, I think the idea behind loan waiver seems to be that you make the farmer eligible again for another loan. In that way, the revival of the loan earning capacity of the farmer is promoted by loan waiver, but I don't think it's a solution, because loan waivers have never solved the problem. Loan waiver is an indication that the whole agricultural profession is uneconomic, the uneconomic nature of agricultural operation. Therefore, we should concentrate on making how farming more economical, more profitable, more productive, rather than purely trying to solve the short-term problem of loan waiver. Loan waiver has not given any positive results so far.
Now, coming back to the parameters of the waivers we have seen so far, sir. In Maharashtra, for example, there is a condition that if 1.5 lakh rupees is granted as loan, the entire remaining amount has to be given upfront. Do you think this is fair? Is the process becoming more about showing political action than actual results?
Well, loan waiver is a political step, political action in order to provide temporary relief or temporary comfort to the farmers. But it is not, it is really a signal of farming which is not very economical. If the loan waiver is an index of the uneconomic nature of farming, and therefore it is not going to solve any problem, except very short-term problem. And I think it's high time that we look at the problem of the farmers on the lines indicated by the National Commission on Farmers, which I chaired.
Well, there's also a demand of waiving all farmer loans, not just those from scheduled banks. How practical is that demand?
One is the entire credit reform in agriculture. Credit which is farmer-friendly, pro-small farmer-friendly, and which is not based upon exploitative rates of interest. This is the essential component of a successful farming strategy. That's why I said we need some fundamental changes in our approach. One is the credit policy, which should be pro-small farmer and should not lead to excessive exploitation of farmers. Just the opposite of this kind of thinking is the short-term view of providing relief to the farmers through either loan waivers or through very low interest loan and so on, which make loans unviable. I therefore think the time has come to revisit the recommendations of the National Commission on Farmers in these areas of credit, procurement, public pricing, public policy in terms of public distribution system, input-output pricing policies. These are important for long-term survival of farming as a successful economic profession.
One of the important recommendations of that commission that you're talking about, sir, was that farmers should be paid cost plus 50% as fair remuneration. In fact, that was a demand you made, and many are asking that it be implemented. Have you had any conversations with the government on why they have not managed to implement these yet, or how it can be implemented?
We had extensive consultation, not only with government, not only with the Prices Commission, the then chairman of the Prices Commission, but also with farmers, with state governments, state ministers for agriculture. At the political level, professional level and farmers level, we had extensive consultation. So that our recommendations are really the voice of the farmers, because we are called Farmers Commission. Therefore, we thought it's our responsibility to serve as the voice of farmers. And it is not due to lack of consultation, there's a problem. There's a problem in terms of implementation, which looks at the problem in a very short-term view, while the Commission looked at it in a somewhat long-term view.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Swaminathan, for speaking with us. That was MS Swaminathan talking about how there are many plans in place. It's implementation which is the problem. We have to see how the government deals with the situation, looking at the looming elections in 2019, when there will be pressure also to treat farmers as a political group, even though the agrarian crisis is a large economic problem as well. Now, moving on to the next big story we're tackling today on Primetime Debate, even as the guessing game in political circles continues over when Rahul Gandhi, Vice President of the Congress Party, will take over the reins of the party, his global outreach is certainly making news. Rahul Gandhi has finished a 2-week tour in the United States, which included 3 public addresses at Berkeley University, at Princeton, and an NRI meet in New York. Some of the commentary on the meetings has been positive, and of course some have dismissed the tour completely. We are attempting to analyze whether anything substantial will come out of Rahul Gandhi's visit, and will his speeches, well received as they have been, translate into any real political gains. I'm joined to talk about this by Richard Rosso from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Vinod Sharma, senior political journalist, is joining us this evening. Yashwant Deshmukh, MD and Chief Editor, See Voter Broadcast, and Shankar Iyer, political economy analyst and author, is also joining us on the debate. Good evening to all of you. Rick, I'm going to start with you because you met with Rahul Gandhi at 2 or 3 meetings. Apart from his public appearances, you had a chance to speak with him. What was your impression?
Well, I think in person, he actually pulls off a little bit better impression on most people than sometimes the public image is portrayed. He spoke knowledgeably about a number of global issues India faces, on questions about relations with China, about whether Congress will continue the good relations that they have with the United States, India's major defense and security issues, and even ducked into economic issues from time to time. Spoke well on all those things. I think, of course, we always look for when a party is in office, what kind of things do we see there? So it's one thing to hear good words, comforting words. Another thing to see what would happen should he end up in office at some point as a leader of the country.
Well, before we move to our other panelists, let's play out a bit of what Rahul Gandhi said at Berkeley and why it made news. Because he said something at every big event, but the Berkeley one made news because he spoke about being a dynast and also talked about how that is how India works. Let's just listen in.
Most parties in India have that problem. So don't give us stick, because Mr. Akhilesh Yadav is a dynast, Mr. Stalin is a dynast, Mr. Dhummal's son is a dynast. So, even Abhishek Bachchan is a dynast. I mean, that's how India runs.
Well, Shankar Iyer, there was a lot of mirth at that comment, and of course there were reactions from union ministers to all of it. My question is that does this tactic work at all? Rahul Gandhi, quite self-effacing, saying, I know I'm a poor speaker, Prime Minister Modi is a better communicator, yes, I'm a dynast. Does all of this work somewhere in the overall political messaging?
Well, to start with, I think this is his roadshow for the upcoming IPO. I think there is a lot of buzz about him being coronated next month and next month. So I think one thing that this trip has done is it's got him heard. Now, opinions may differ on whether he spoke well or poorly or whatever, but the fact is that he is heard. He made some points. He was allowed to complete his sentences, and the hosts were polite to let him have his say. Whether this translates into anything is a long-term question. The point is that most parties, when they're in opposition, say things that you and I want to hear and the voter wants to hear. When you are in opposition, you are able to say things. In Mr. Rahul Gandhi's case and for the Congress, the challenge is how do they translate all those ideas and thoughts that have got some traction into real politic action. I mean, it can happen that whatever happens in the US stays in the US, like they say about Vegas. So it may not translate into anything here. But it gives him a leg up in his own party. It gives him a sense of belonging that the seniors in his party, you know, the Congress is sort of split wide open in the middle between the seniors and the newcomers. So I think the effort has been well timed. It has been serendipitous in the sense that it has come around the time when India's economic issues are being discussed in India and elsewhere. It comes at a time when there is a political lull in the political calendar. It also comes in the run-up to the big election in Gujarat. I think he has played well, but the point is that what is the hurdle meter here? You must remember that the Congress has 44 seats, its worst track record ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know,
So,
because
from there it's an uphill climb.
Sure,
And
sure. You
it's
know, because we want to
simple
get
that-
everyone's comments in and cover a few points, I'm just keeping it a little short. Hopefully, we'll keep our responses also pithy. But just to get to the crux of it, and I like Shankar Ayer's line that he was allowed to complete his sentences. Some would say he managed to complete his sentences, depending on what side you are. Yashwant Deshmukh, he did talk about things that are bothering people right now. He spoke about jobs, he spoke about India, China. He went to the extent to say that we couldn't provide the jobs, nor is Prime Minister Modi. Will all of that touch a chord somewhere?
Well, finally, he started saying something which any opposition leader should have said way back and should have said in a way which should connect with the people. I'm intrigued with the fact that he had to go all the way so far to reconnect to the masses or the audience back home. Having said that, I mean, I can't really say much how much politically this is going to pick up the stock, you know, which have been on a historic low in 2014. But yes, I mean, it's a welcome thing for any the grand opposition, the opposition leader or the leader of the grand old party of India, which is in opposition right now, to at least start saying what an opposition leader should say and sound like. That's what I have to say.
You know, Vinod Sharma, what do you make of, you know, Rahul Gandhi's entire tour? And isn't it a late in the day of his political career? Because it's not like he's not been around for a while. To now say, this is who I am, this is who I stand for. Is there anything substantial in it?
Well, you see, I mean, I think that Rahul Gandhi does not require a tour of the United States to be elevated as president of the Congress party. That he is not the president of the Congress party until yet is all because of him. Insofar as this tour of the United States is concerned, he has tried to sort of juxtaposition himself with Mr. Narendra Modi. He's praised him. He was never out of step. He did not show any discourtesy to the Prime Minister, except for once saying that he has been the minder of about 1,000 odd people managing trawls that deconstruct, that are their full-time job is to deconstruct his personality. You see, Rahul Gandhi has had a major image crisis, both in the media and in popular perception in India and also abroad. Now, it was his choice from which end to start. So he has decided, if he has decided to start from the end abroad, let's see how he takes it forward in India. The problem of the Congress party is not as much the leadership question, which is a given. So long as the Gandhi-Nehru family is there, we may keep on debating against dynasties and dynasts, but they are at once a liability and an asset of the Congress party. They are a liability because other young people do not get opportunities adequately, and they are an asset because they keep the party together. And without them, the party, starts falling apart. We have seen this in recent history as well. So Rahul Gandhi needs to rework the party's foundations, No party can be successful without a social alliance on the ground. And the Congress today lacks a social alliance on the ground. It also lacks an infrastructure, a party infrastructure that can translate that social alliance into a political alliance, which means a vote. So it's a hard task, and never before any leadership in the Congress has been faced with these challenges. His mother was faced in 1998 when she joined active politics. But no other leader in the Congress has faced this challenge. So let's see how he performs on his return, what is the new leadership and whether he takes over, because there are two opinions within the Congress party. That Sonia Gandhi completes 20 years as Congress president in 2018, and there is a point of view that, she should complete those 20 years.
Right.
And maybe he can take over after that. So let's see what happens.
Sure. If we had to look beyond what this means for internal Congress dynamics, and others have also spoken about that, to what he actually said over there, because Rick, Rahul Gandhi mentioned at a couple of meets that they messed up as well. Of course, he took the opportunity to make political points against his opponents back home. But was there any sense of whether he has the answers? Does his party have a plan?
Well, they do have a plan. I mean, some of the issues that had been talked about on campaign strategy, jobs is something that I think, everybody's becoming a lot more publicly aware that despite solid growth, despite, foreign investment inflows, the job creation just hasn't been there. And then, whether or not Congress can pull together, some of the minority voices that they feel have been distanced by this government. So I think they have a couple of ideas in mind that they want to capitalize on. But, at the same time, a trip to the United States, engaging in English the entire time probably speaks to, we saw that interview in English that he had done ahead of the 2014 election that, probably hurt the party's chances to some extent. So I think he also looks at shoring up that base that hasn't seen him as often, that, a lot of English media gets pretty good prominence in Delhi and certain circles and capitals in India. So I think, that's the last time that a lot of us had seen him. So I think he wanted to try to shore up that image. And anytime that he talks about some of the failings that the Congress government had, he is able, even if he doesn't say it out loud, to distance himself because he wasn't technically in government then. There may have been behind the string polls that we saw, certain bills that he commented on that were withdrawn and such. But, luckily when he wants to, he can show a bit of distance with the Manmohan Singh government because he never actively took part.
I have a lot of comments coming in. Abhishek Kumar Jain, who's watching this right now, writes in saying, always surprised to see this guy getting so many chances to prove himself, whereas a common man in India struggles to connect even after a single failure. Somewhere, Shankar, that question taps into the whole I'm a dynast, so what response that came from Rahul Gandhi. And it's something people maybe don't like to hear. But do you agree with what Rick is saying, that by saying, yes, Congress messed up, Rahul somehow ends up distancing himself?
Well, he is able to position himself away from the mess that the UPA 2 was. But he cannot fully sort of escape the responsibility for what happened there. He cannot escape responsibility for not having had the courage or the gumption or the astuteness to join the government, maybe not in 2004, maybe in 2006, maybe not in 2009, maybe in 2011. So he can say I was not there, but he was there. And this whole thing about dynasts actually, well, it does give them a leg up. It gives them prominence and sort of first among equals position in the political arena. But remember, you got to win the elections. And in recent times, dynasts have lost elections. Omar Abdullah, Akhilesh Yadav are two prime examples that you see. And you know what's happened to the Yadav family in Bihar. So being a dynast is not a guarantee, but not being a dynast, I guess, helps. So he cannot run away from the fact that he is a third, fourth generation politician from a single family. I mean, starting from Motilal Nehru, I mean, this is like, he's the fifth or sixth generation guy. So he gets the advantages, and he will try and sort of brush off the sort of dent that dynasty creates in the Indian discourse. But the primary thing that Rahul Gandhi has to fix is what the party stands for and what it stands against. When they were in power, they spoke about a lot of things that they stood for, but couldn't stand by those principles. And even in opposition, his party's performance in Maharashtra, where their own MLA moved rather dubious resolutions, it's not very, nothing to write home about.
Right.
In Karnataka, he has a government, and that government has been unable to fix the issues of polarization, criminalization, bigotry, all the stuff that he's spoken about. Kalburgi's death happened during the Congress regime.
Yeah, that's true. Lead by governance. Lead by governance.
Yes.
Right. Last comments from Yashwant Deshmukh and Vinod Sharma. Yashwant Deshmukh, you know, what really does this need to translate to once Rahul is back in India? And will it now make a difference to his prospects if he actually takes on and takes charge of his party at the top position?
Well, he is at the top position in his party, regardless of formally. We all know, I mean, there's no magic or there's no it in there. Thing is that there is something called real politics. There is something called hard politics that is to be played on the ground. And realistically speaking, there is a lot more ground that needs to be covered. We know the Bhai is much more senior to me, and he would probably agree to this, that, you know, the gap has been so big. It will take a lot of effort from not just from Rahul Gandhi, but also from the entire paraphernalia of the Congress infrastructure. If they really want to get into turn the tide in their favor for 2019, things have been. I mean, no, you don't need a psephologist to tell that things have been bad for Congress. They are still bad for Congress. I mean, it would be. Probably very naive to say. All right,
I have just about a minute left, and I'm going to give the last comment to Vinod Sharma. Where does it go from here, Vinod Sharma ji? And if you could just give me a very brief comment to end up.
You know, the question that was raised about the dynasty, it's valid. The question is valid, and Rahul Gandhi has to address that. He started addressing that at the very outset, you know, when he had joined politics. But now I think he's being more real political. Let us accept one thing, that we will have to finally make a distinction between democratic dynasties, which some people may find it to be a great oxymoron, but which is there in India, and autocratic dynasties. You know, we have seen like North Korean dynasties. So, and in India, please understand that, you see, faces represent ideas. Advani had himself once said that the ideas are important in Indian context because the level of literacy that we have, people identify faces with certain ideas, and I think that is relevant. But Rahul Gandhi's prime task is to change the work culture in the Congress party. The Congress party today is not geared to face a machine, which is the RSS BJP, which is a 24/7 political machine.
Absolutely. So a long
And in
task there.
Congress,
Long
there is a
task
lot
there. I'm
of
sorry, I'll have to
absenteeism,
end
and
it
there's
there.
lot
But
of
thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on this conversation. We're just trying to make sense of all of that political analysis out there. Is there really much to it? And moving on now to the big corporate voice of the day. For our next story, Group Executive Chairman of Larsen & Toubro, A.M. Naik, expects economic growth to remain stagnant for 9 more months. Speaking to Bloomberg Quint's Menika Doshi, A.M. Naik had said both demonetization and implementation of goods and service tax have dented the economy. Naik also insists that it will take at least 2 years for a revival in private sector spending.
Well, long term, if really demonetization is implemented properly, and the amount of cash purchase which was taking place, if that is cut off, I think long term it will produce more tax because all the transactions are above board. And I think 1 year I give for demonetization impact to become more positive.
Okay. You believe that things will slow down even further here on, so things will get worse before they get better? Is that your assessment of the economy right now?
I am assessing that things are not going to be better, may remain stagnant, steady.
For how long?
Maximum 9 months. 6 to
9 more months.
9 more months.
9 more months.
9 more.
You know, in February when I spoke with you, Mr. Naik, you told me then that in your estimation, we were talking about the logjam in infrastructure, right? So many projects that were stalled and the lack of the right kind of
Demonetization
contract.
had not happened then.
No, it had happened in November, but the impact was yet still uncertain, as you pointed out. In February, you told me that private sector will take 2 to 3 years to return to infrastructure. You said that infrastructure had been through such a terrible
Correct,
time.
and you can
that
see
2
it
to
is
3.
in
Do you
the-
now think, given the impact of demon, given the impact of GST, that in fact the private sector will take even longer to return to infrastructure?
I would say 2 years, no. 2 years they will not return.
You don't
As a
expect any
private
large, so just to
sector-
explain this to viewers, you don't expect any large infrastructure projects to be undertaken by the
private
private
sector.
sector in the next 2 years at
Except
least.
for 1 or 2 industrial houses.
There is now this debate in the country that if economic growth continues to be slow for the next few quarters, should the government consider some sort of fiscal stimulus? This is at very nascent stages. There's almost always been for the last several months the debate that the RBI should cut rates faster. In your assessment, will a fiscal stimulus and or lower interest rates help resolve the problem that is plaguing infrastructure in India?
I think very limited extent, because the interest rates have come down already to 6%, and bringing down another 0.5% or 1% is not going to be a great stimulus.
Okay.
The reason is that those who went into infrastructure development and many other mega projects in 2004-05, and they had a tremendous amount of debt. I mean, running into some companies 40,000, 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, have not been able to fully pay the debt back. Consequently, there are many non-performing assets, a lot of NPAs, and there may be more and more NPA if this outstanding amount is not paid. So for private sector to come out of all these difficulties itself is going to take 2 years. And there is 6.5 lakh crore is something which is today not used for productive purpose. And the private sector has no capacity to pay back.
6.5 lakh crore worth of projects.
Yeah, not project, but that is the amount.
Capacity. Yeah, capacity of projects, right? Yeah.
So I think before the private sector can take on, they have to clean that past.
And that you're saying will take at least 2 years.
At least.